Hey guys, it is finally Friday. We are a couple days before the 4th of July here. So next week's probably going to be kind of crazy. I have family coming in from out of town, so I don't know. I'm going to try my best to have a video every day next week. So we'll see. I don't know yet, but my goal is to try to have 5, but I don't know if I will. Still waiting for the two ultra males are kind of poking their heads out of their eggs a little bit. That one clown is still, I saw it poke its head out today, but it still had a big yolk stack on it. So you're not really gonna be able to see these too well. Those are the two ultra males, and that's the clown in there. It looks neat from what I saw. I don't want to bother it too much since it has, there's a pretty decent sized yolk sack still attached to it. So I was kind of letting it be. So hopefully it comes out okay and there's no issues with it absorbing that yolk. But today, since I went through that sale this week, getting rid of some snakes that I no longer had any use for, I wanted to kind of talk about trimming the fat. That's something that in this business, in this hobby, that you have to consistently do, especially if you're trying to build something. You can't build your collection just by getting more racks, because just accumulating more and more snakes does not help you grow a business. Because if you're still breeding a Mojave 5 years into this, you're doing something wrong. That shouldn't be your goal, is that you're 5 years into this and you still have Mojave, single gene Mojaves that you're still breeding. You should be well past that. 5 years into this, most of your stuff should be double recessive, especially with the way the prices are at this point. Double recessives are very accessible. They weren't accessible when I started in 2019. Plain pied females are still selling for $1,500, $2,000, like adults. Now, I've seen them as low as $500. That's a 75% price drop. So, as far as trimming the fat goes, what I do is as things hatch, I check out, is this a male or a female? Does it upgrade anything that I currently have in my rack? And I think to myself, well, let's talk about females specifically here, because males typically can breed within a year, so that the shelf life is a lot shorter on those. But let's talk about females, because typically, it's going to take you close to 2 years, even if it grows fast, to get an actual clutch out of that snake. So let's take, for instance, let's see this female, and she's actually going to go up for sale, probably paired with one of those new clowns I had, a male. So this is a pastel leopard clown female. She just laid her first clutch with me. It's the one that's currently hatching, and I don't really need a pastel leopard clown at this point, because I have so many other holdbacks from last season that'll probably be ready to breed around the same time that this female is actually ready to breed again. And I'm trying to keep a smaller collection, so I need to move around the pieces pretty frequently. So, pastel leopard clown, nice, big female, proven breeder, 7 eggs. So, you're thinking to yourself, that's a nice snake. I would never get rid of that. Well, the problem is when you start producing your own stuff and nice stuff on a regular basis, the stuff that I've held back is so much better than that she doesn't really serve a purpose anymore. I have a whole row here of clown het pied. These are all clown 100% het pied females. And this is just 4 of them that I produced last year that are all going to be able to breed for me probably by the end of the year. Right? So, we have pastel, we have spot nose, we have orange dream, we have leopard in all these females, and they're all het pied, 100% het pied as well. So, when you're breeding snakes like this, right? So these are all visual clowns. They all have 1 or 2 genes, or even 3 genes in them. They technically have better genes than her, especially if you're not one of those people that likes pastel. And they're also all het pied. So, and this is just 4 of the snakes, the females that I kept back from last year, that are clown. And when you're producing snakes that have multiple genes plus their double recessive projects, you start to phase out your single recessive, 1 or 2 gene snakes. And let's see, let's move these girls back. This snake, let's take for instance, right here. I believe it's an OD Batman. I haven't really spent too much time looking into it. OD Batman had pied female, right? I mean, she's going to be, spot nose kind of stinks in pied because it makes a high white pied, but I have seen some clown pieds with spot nose that do have a little bit of pattern. But she's valuable, crazy valuable just for a clown project, right? She's a big girl. She's growing fast. She potentially has 3 genes in her, plus she's clown, plus she's het pied. So let me put all these snakes back before I lose any, like I did yesterday in the other video. So you have to think to yourself as you're progressing your collection, as you're producing stuff, you don't want to be producing the same stuff every year. If you're not even taking small steps forward every year, then you're not making progress. So even if you started off with a Mojave to a banana pairing, and that was the first 2 snakes you ever produced, to be quite honest, if you want to have a low entry point or you don't have a lot of money to start with, I suggest everybody just to buy some blue-eyed Lucies. Like 2 blue-eyed Lucies. Buy a male, buy a female. Maybe you buy a Mystic Potion and a Super Mojave or something. So you're making Super Mojaves and Mystic Potions or a lesser, I don't know. If you buy a lesser Mojave and a Mystic Potion, even better maybe. That's a good thing to start off with. Blue-eyed Lucies are easy to sell. All your babies will be blue-eyed Lucies. You're not going to get any $50 snakes out of it. And they're guaranteed to make you blue-eyed Lucies with every single one of those babies. So let's say you start off there, year 1. You want to progress past that, because while blue-eyed Lucies are a nice entry-level snake to sell, their earning potential is capped. Like you're not, I was lucky enough to produce some pretty rare blue-eyed Lucies a couple years back, and I actually sold a couple of them for $1,500, and I kept 2 of them. And I'm trying to breed them now, and looking back, I wish I probably would have capitalized on it and just sold those 2 and made the extra $3,000. They're still basically rare snakes. But from those 2 blue-eyed Lucies, you want to progress the next season. And you don't want to be just producing blue-eyed Lucies anymore. Maybe if you have extra space, you keep that pair, and maybe you make that pairing again just to have some more stuff to sell at shows. But you want to be producing clowns or pied combos, or clown head pieds, or pied head clowns, or DG head clowns, or you want to work up into recessives, because this industry at this point is basically all recessive heavy. So, and I really don't see that changing. I mean, that's the way everything works. Clown is some of the best looking snakes you can produce. Some of the pieds that I've seen and produced are some of the best looking snakes. When you start mixing DG in with that stuff, or you start working in Xanthic. I have 2 lightning pied clutches due at the end of July, end of July. That are some of the craziest looking pieds that you're ever going to see. So you start working in extra snakes like that. And as you do that, as you produce some stuff and get more funds, you're looking at upgrading your stuff, right? You don't want to keep buying. If you start off with 2 blue-eyed Lucies, you don't want to have 10 blue-eyed Lucies. That doesn't do you any good. That doesn't grow your collection. So you want to get into other projects that work well together. And once you start mixing those projects together, I have my, when I bought my original black Xanthic hypo, triple het black Xanthic hypo pied male, I bred him the black Xanthics and I bred him the hypo pied. That's how I got the black het leopard Mojave hypo pied het black Xanthic snake I produced last year. Knowing that I produced that male, I produced him, I think they were born in August. I found on Chimera last fall, they had a bunch of hypo pied project stuff. And this girl actually just shed today, so let me pull her out. So I went through and I purchased a lot of stuff from their clown hypo pied project and a lot of stuff just from their hypo pied project, including this pinstripe hypo pied female. She is ready to breed. And the reason I did that is because then I had that black-head leopard Mojave hypo pied. Pinstripe sometimes can pull in a little more pattern, just kind of like Enchi, not as severe as Enchi, but kind of the same thing. As you can see, she's an awesome looking snake. So my idea was, you know what? I have this awesome male that I produced, so I need to maybe develop that project a little more. So I started getting some more hypopied stuff and some more clown hypopied stuff. So as that project kind of develops, I don't want to keep buying more racks. I'm happy with 5 right now. I really don't want more. I've even thought of, I thought of buying another 5540 around Black Friday time this coming year. But then I started thinking to myself, do I really want to do that? Do I want to add more snakes? Or do I just need to start trimming the fat? And so I started thinking to myself, well, like that pastel leopard clown female. She's really just a single recessive. I really don't need her anymore. I have this female who is a possible super leopard pastel clown het pied. She's a pretty snake. But after I breed her again this season, she might be trimmed super pastel pied het clown. She bred for me last year too, is breeding again now. I think after I breed her this year, again, she's going to be sold because they don't add a whole lot to any of my projects at this point, where I've developed my projects for the past year and a half. A super pastel pied het clown doesn't do me any good because I have 3, 4, 5 gene clown het pieds or pied het clowns or clown pieds that I'll be able to breed that take that project in a completely different direction. So you're looking at making progress every single year. Even if it's baby steps, you want to be making those baby steps. You don't want to be producing the same stuff. So I am probably more aggressive than most people with how often I kind of cycle through my collection and decide, you know what, it's time to sell stuff. I need to clear space. And a lot of the reason I was doing the sale that I did this week was because I was out of space. I mean, these 2 racks were full. And I still have, let's see, I have 12 in here now that are going to need to move up sooner rather than later, which means that I either need to sell some of these snakes, or I need to sell some of these snakes, or I need to buy another rack. And I really don't want to buy another rack. So that's when I started saying, you know what, I could probably trim some of the fat here, right? I got rid of the OD pied het DG male because I have an OD Leo DG pied male that's breeding for me. I got rid of my super OD yellow belly leopard Enchi pied male because when I bought him, he was my most expensive snake ever. That project, I really didn't have anywhere else to take it. I also have a super OD YB fire clown pied male that's breeding for me. And once that male started breeding, I was like, you know what? That male really does most of what that other male does, plus he's visual clown. So it's kind of redundant. I don't need it. It doesn't take any of my projects anywhere, especially with him only being a single recessive. So it was time for him to go. When I'm ready to, that pastel leopard clown female is going to go because I have so many other clowns with more going on than her. So that's what you guys really want to think about is, do I want to be sentimental? If there's, to be honest, I don't have any snakes when I first started doing this. They've all been sold. There was one snake, her name was Annie. She was a pinstripe, a pastel pinstripe. She was a lemon blast that I sold, I think last year or 2 years ago, that I was sort of sentimental about because she was like my first big female that I purchased. But I ended up like, you know what am I going to do with the pastel pinstripe? I'm producing lightning pieds, I'm producing clown pieds, I'm producing 3 gene hypopieds that have never been produced before. What am I going to do with a pastel pinstripe? And with limited space, I couldn't keep her forever. At some point, she was taking up space that a more important snake could be using. So that's kind of how you have to think about it. If you have one snake that you absolutely love, get him an enclosure, make him your pet, take him out of the breeding rotation, and that's the snake that you play with. But I mean, that's still taking up space, and most of us, I don't have a ton of space. I mean, this is the room I have. It's like 25 by 20. I got lucky that my new house, we literally bought this house because this space was in it. That was one of the big selling points. Not everybody has that luxury. I used to be doing it. I used to be breeding these guys in a tiny little laundry room with like very little space. There was a furnace in there. There was the washer and a dryer and some other stuff. The water heater is in there, the furnace. Yeah. So there's barely any room. I was able to fit a 70-30, and I think I fit one of the sea serpent racks. That's all I could fit in that room. So when you have limited space, you need to be very critical about which snakes you're keeping. So I'm so far into this now that the whole sentimental value of snakes to me is just kind of out the window. I don't grow attached to any of them in that sort of way. There are snakes I love in here. I love their personalities. That Icarus, that Super OD YB NC Fire Pie that I bought from Aussie, that I just sold. He was a great snake. He was fantastic. He had a great personality. Probably the prettiest snake that I currently owned that still looked that well as an adult. Great snake to take out when people came over because he was pretty and friendly and easy to handle. But I had no use for him. He was just sitting here. I had to feed him every week. I had to clean his tub. He wasn't being used in any breeding. So I just had to get rid of him. It was time. And he, made me some money that I was able to reinvest somewhere else. So I urge you to be more critical than you are about which snakes you're keeping and which snakes you're selling. And I would bet that the majority of you, if not all of you, are not critical enough about which snakes that you're deciding to keep in your racks, because they're taking up space that something more important could be using.